In this episode, we sat down with Dave Finnegan, CXO of the Orvis Company, to learn how a leading retailer continues to innovate and inspire deep personal connections with consumers around the world.
What's the first metric that you see yourself like honing in on first? What's like that kind of foundation before you start building out a customer experience that you find needs to be in place before all the other cool stuff can start to take shape?
That's a really great question. So when I first started at Orvis, I sat down with our CEO, Burke, and I asked him, if you were going to start Orvis from scratch, what would you do? He sat back in his chair and he said, that's a good question. You know, if I were going to start knowing everything I know, I would go find the best product in the world and I would sell the hell out of it. And I was like, of course, that's how Nike started, that's how Orvis started, that's how Yeti started, that's how Barber started. It all started with an amazing product that took care of a customer's need and solved it. And as I was thinking about that in the context of great experiences, I thought, what role does product have in great experiences? It is the number one thing for a great experience is a great product. Whether that product is a service or whether that product is apparel or fly fishing gear.
Yep.
And so the thing that I learned the most from his perspective is if we want to impact our consumers' experience the most, start with a product that they can see solves a problem for them. And so what we do is we start first understanding what the tension is that a customer has, what's the problem or the tension that they have. And so that frames up the opportunity to go solve that tension. And many times the best marketers help to identify tensions that people don't recognize themselves and they go solve it. But once they understand that as a consumer, then it really resonates because they're like, okay. So for us, for example, we looked at Father's Day and we said, okay, Father's Day, Orvis could really make a massive impact on Father's Day. Because the consumer tension is who's the hardest guy on your list to buy for. Right? Your dad doesn't want another tie.
Yep.
He wants to spend time with you and he wants connections. He wants things that are meaningful. And that's what the Orvis brand is all about. So we start with the consumer tension, what we're trying to solve, and then we work backwards to how do we solve that.
Wow. Now, how do you see it? How do you measure its impact? I mean, is it sell through? Are there other things aside from just the typical checkout that drives that for you?
Yeah. So for us, we something that was really, really helpful early on is we focus on gross profit. And we know what our gross profit is every day. And we don't have to wait to the end of the month to see how we did with our profitability. And literally our team scorecards for marketing and merchandising are gross profit based. So we start here's our goal for gross profit, here's what it looks like.
So I thought that was a really interesting way that Dave unpacked the question that you asked him and answered it in a very methodical way. What did you feel was the most interesting part about the way that he answered that question?
Well, I love customer tension as being his focus and the way they really try to figure out what is the tension that the customer is feeling and working backwards to find the products that are going to solve that big problem. I thought it seemed like a really, really simple answer. And then when you really start to think about it, it's like, wow, that's crazy. And then he goes, trying to figure out the tension that the customer doesn't even know they have. And then picking out just a simple example of Father's Day, especially when you look at the type of customer that shops at Orvis. These are affluent customers who have a lot of great stuff. So when they're solving that problem for the loved ones who are either buying for that consumer or that consumer themselves, it's smart. And then I love how they tie it back into the organization and getting gross profit as one of the other core metrics. So it's not good enough to just solve the problem, but we got to solve the problem in a way that is going to impact our business positively.
Absolutely. And I loved how, and this frames up further comments that Dave makes throughout this conversation, the focus on experience is so deeply rooted within that organization, and you'll hear him talk about it time and time again. The customer experience, how it impacts their experience, how we gauge what the experience looks like. So.
Yeah, and they handle it very tactically. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's what's great about this interview. It's one thing to say a buzzword like customer experience, and it's another thing to have an actual process to go about executing.
And measuring.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you see the battle online as being as significant as retailers talk, or do you see the in-store experience waning a bit because brands aren't connecting with employees? I mean, where do you when you look at the biggest rub to drive the business, is it online or is it in-store or a combination of both? I mean, what do you look at as being those drivers?
I believe that the best omni experience is the best customer experience. And so it's not a battle to me between retail and digital. It's a blending of how they're used. And so I think about customer behavior, and we've gone to the store and done customer, just watch how customers shop. We've done customer interviews and things like that. And what's really, really interesting, when you watch someone at retail shop, they do that with their hands. Next time you're in a retail space, watch what they do. While people are walking around, they're touching the fabric, they're holding it up in front of them. They go to retail because it's a different experience. Mm-hmm. And so that experience there's a place for that, and a very, very meaningful place for that. They also happen to make some really meaningful customer human experience connections there at retail. That is a great combination with digital and how they have that experience at retail and go online, or have an online experience and go to retail. There's so much blending of those things that we can do. It makes a really, really positive impact. So our business is strong right now, and I think in part because we're not battling between retail and digital. We see all of those experiences being really meaningful, and the idea of connecting them in a really human connected way is where we think that we can win in the future.
I think the interesting thing about what he's saying here too is you've got to do some work.
Yes.
And again, it gets back to that tension. If we figure out what the customer wants, then we're going to create an experience in the store that's amazing. All of a sudden, I've got a fanatical following of consumers who love my products.
Right. And these guys do it a number of different ways. When you go into an Orvis store, you get the feeling like you want to go outdoors. And even when you look at some of the fishing and tackle and the products that they're offering in that store, and the way that they have folks in the store that are also equally as passionate and they want to have that bond with you, it really enhances the way that the customer interacts. And that's something that a lot of retailers could totally take a page from.
Yeah, I appreciate Dave's candor about profitability, and that they're not shy to say this is another big driver for us. I mean, we're a business. Yeah, we're a retailer. Yeah, we're here for the consumer. Yeah, we want to create great products, but it's got to be at a profit. It's got to be at something that is great for the business too. And I love the fact that even when you look at the brand, it is very bullish about the products it's offering and the business that it's running. Yep. I mean, these guys are authentic.
Absolutely.
Is it cool for you to explain a little bit about some of the ideas harvesting that you've created with this model?
Yeah, we call it playbacks, and what it is it's something that we've learned, and we're still learning how to use it well. At the core of a playback is what's the customer experience cross-channel, not just at digital or at retail. We use consumer insight. We say what's the tension we're trying to solve. We and we put together this prototype, and then we take that prototype and we first play it back to different groups of people at Orvis, and each of those groups we ask that they set aside the questions about how much this is going to cost or when we're going to do this or any of those things, and really put ourselves into this place of empathy with the consumer, so that we're literally trying to feel what this consumer feels when they go through these interactions. And when we set the stage for that and invite people to play, the ideas are amazing, because they're all consumers, and they're all Orvis consumers too. So what's interesting is when we all put our consumer hats on and we're talking through what the experience is like. In fact, it's happening right next door to us. We have a group that's in there right now of people from the UK marketing team, the call center, the technology team, the digital merchants, and the marketers. And they're sitting in, walking through an experience of someone getting a catalog, liking a look in that catalog, and then how do they go fulfill it? Or they see a look in the store that they like and they want to go online. And so we walk through these cross-channel experiences, and when people are in those experiences, they can innovate or give ideas that are way past what we thought about. Once we get it to a place where we're like, that is an amazing experience, we then take it to consumers. And so next month we have usability sciences study that will be in New York. And what's interesting with that is we take that same prototype approach, we do it over a week, and what we do is we start with the Monday, we do a usability study with people coming in, and then all of the feedback that we get from them on Tuesday, we apply that to our prototype. And then on Wednesday, the next group has seen the improvements. And so Wednesday we do it again. Then Thursday we make the improvements again. And then Friday we've got something that's been improved a few times during the week, where we saw people get stuck or we saw them give us feedback on certain things. And we start with our making sure that as a group we feel like it's something we would be proud of as an experience, and then we put it in front of our customers to make it even better.
So we watched these guys go through a playback, and it's really interesting how...
I even watched. It was like, holy moly, we couldn't find a conference room because they were herding 40 people into a conference room to have this. And the excitement was interesting. I remember you and I were like, it is so noisy in this lobby. It was like they were getting ready for a party.
Exactly.
And it was just a bunch of folks getting ready to do a playback or playbook.
And really, I mean, to look at how they take the concept of a catalog in retail, and that's something that today you look at a catalog and you have to type in the SKU or search somehow on the website. Walking through how do we make that experience better, it was remarkable to see how much attention they put into something like that. But nobody seems to really be doing anything to change right now.
Well, and I think the thing that it didn't get enough attention in the interview, and it was my fault, I should have pushed it more, is again that excitement that we felt when we were there when they were doing these. Yeah. It wasn't one of those things like, oh gosh, I got to go in one of these meetings where we're going to dissect the customer experience. They were excited about it.
Right.
I mean, that was cool.
And it had to happen. They weren't taking the fact that room wasn't
that's why we were outside.
Where do you see the experience at shows, specifically, most likely in retail for you, but there's a whole bunch of other shows going on? Where do you see them being relevant, and where do you see them not being relevant?
I think the key to trade shows, for me at least, is what I learned from others. And I find that I learn the most from people who are doing the stuff that I'm doing. And what's helpful is when you're sitting in there with a whole bunch of other CMOs and saying, hey, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? And I'm solving that too. And we think customer concierge level experience is really appropriate for our brand, but we're looking at ways of scaling that. You guys seen any ideas about that? And having CMOs come up to me afterwards and say, hey, we're trying something that you should try, or we're seeing something you should see. That comparing notes with people not on the salesy side, but on the practitioner side.
Yep.
That is the most valuable thing for me because I learned so much from it. The second thing that I feel really important is we're successful when we're great partners, and we have great partners. And so trade shows are often a place where we can meet with all of our partners at the same time.
What is really interesting about Orvis is every experience that we encountered on this trip never let you down from what you think of when you think about Orvis, right? High-end, outdoors, adventure, that whole feeling for me never died, right?
Yeah.
Even getting to their campus is exactly if you could draw it out and say this is what my dream destination for Orvis corporate is, they're there.
Right.
We're gonna have a conversation with Dave, and we have it outside.
Right.
And it's fall, and it's beautiful out, and everything about this company is high end.
Absolutely.
So that was, I think that was one of the fun things for me is to be able to see that they don't just sell products to the customers that they're targeting.
Right.
They live the lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really appreciative to Dave for sitting down with us. I think the conversation was really valuable.
Yep, I agree. I think a lot of our users are going to see the same thing that we saw, which is I want to go to more shows to bump into guys like Dave to get this type of information, because the simplicity of the message that they deliver is super powerful in helping your brands go forward. I know we've been able to put things in place in our organization that we learned from Dave.
Yep, absolutely. So what?
Everything is so.
I know, I need to stop saying that. Really good information. Really. I can't work this way.
Quit.
What is going on?